Ready then, my recording is up and ready. Can you confirm for me that you can hear me? I've had some mic issues today.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me post-mortem your paper. Do you want to really quickly talk about your paper, what you feel like you did well, where you think you could respond, or you could improve, anything like that, just to start us off?
Maybe like in the middle of it, we can probably some things.
Okay. Cool. So, for the people watching this, for context, I've worked with Dallas before, so I'm probably gonna be pretty casual in this recording. I mentored him. Were you a freshman or sophomore when we first mentored?
Freshman.
Right. Okay. So I mentored him 2 seasons ago, and I forget. Did you finalize at ICDC or?
Yeah, I finalized my first season at ICDC.
Yeah. And then you got first. I swear that, dude, you just had like the ultimate. I'm proud. Okay. So, for context, postmortems are generally much more nitpicky, especially when you do have a paper of this quality. You're not generally going to have a paper this good come across your desk. So, it's all about constructive feedback. And yeah, let's get started. I wanted to first start with your executive summary because I know that this is something that a lot of students struggle with. We'll see a lot more on 20 pagers this year rather than 10 pagers because those are now gone, but hopefully this is going to apply in the future. With the executive summary, we want to utilize future tense when we're describing our products. The idea there is if we're using present tense, it's not giving a sense of urgency and it's not also giving a sense of impact, of long-term impact. When we say this holiday season, over 2 billion packages are on the move, we're not in the holiday season. Depending on when the person is reading, they could have the kind of like some cognitive dissonance. So if you could say over 2 billion packages will be on the move and 88% of Americans fear they'll be stolen. It shows that there's a current need, that the Americans are currently present tense fearful, and in the future they will be seeing all of these packages move. Sort of playing with present tense and future tense will really help there. Additionally, I would say that also for your executive summary, I think I would have wanted to see your net profit. I know I could technically do the internal math of gross and expense, but I think net profit would be something good to always include in the executive summary. Your ROI is a little bit high. I did see that you sent me some notes earlier when you were talking to someone from Ring on your project, which, by the way, very cool. I think seeing net profit would have been really beneficial here. For your key metrics, I know I had something. Oh yeah, this is just a design nitpicky thing. I would have put this closer to your objectives just visually so that it would have been easier for a judge to go through and reference. I don't know how you'd want to execute that, but I know that I had to glance back up and down and it became a little bit distracting. For target market, honestly, I love your executive summary. I had to grasp for straws for feedback on this. If you do decide to do a long form like this, where it stretches from one to the other and it has columns of comparison, you want to make sure it stretches in content too. For example, if we're talking about first-time homeowners, your secondary market might say that these are confident homeowners, or these are people who have been in their home for a while. You're talking about first-time homeowners, so unless you're going to pair that with something like first-time cautious homeowners versus the whole homeowners with valuable items, you're kind of missing the comparison point there. When we're looking, especially with 3 different markets, we have to make sure that it's clear how they relate to each other. You should be looking at the same general traits and how they differ, if that makes sense. Or like, for example, first-time security buyers for primary, these might be, we might move interested in advanced security up to the same line so that when you read across, it makes sense. Or it would go first-time security buyers interested in advanced security and prefers integrated security, showing the differences in the same thread. That's literally all I had for your executive summary.
Yeah, I think everything tracked well. That was good.
Yeah. Okay, description of the product. I will be honest, this is a pretty heavy page. I probably would have... Okay, well, first of all, orphans and widows. Reading back through your paper, I noticed you actually have a habit of leaving orphans. And in case you aren't sure what those are, orphans are tiny pieces of text that hang onto a sentence, and it kind of messes up your shifting. So
I see what you mean.
Yeah, just I see them throughout your paper. You've got them there, you've got them there. I know we have some down here somewhere. Okay, well, I thought I saw more, but orphans can cause your page to look a little bit cluttered, and additionally, it just comes across as unprofessional because it feels like you didn't use the right words. It's silly, it's a lot of stress, but it's one of those tiny details that changes the way a page flows. Because if you hadn't had that orphan, you could have had this band of white space, and it could have made the paper breathe a bit more. But having it just kind of cuts it. Additionally, I would not have added the blue circles behind the images. Because the lighter blue is up against the white, it actually becomes really hard to read. And especially when you do have judges that are flipping through your paper, right? They may not be fully reading it. They might be skimming it. For visual examples, you want to make sure there's as much contrast as possible. So if you had left the little circles outside, or if you hadn't included them at all, it would have been much more high contrast, and you would be sitting... I'm colorblind. I had to turn on my accessibility to even see what the Ring alarm system was. In that same thread, I also wouldn't have bolded the text here. I understand why you were going with it, but there would have been a natural split anyway with the dark blue between the different categories, and the bolding just made it harder to read, especially with the font choice you had here. I think this looks kind of like Blinker or Blogger, and both of those don't bold well. So just being kind of mindful about that. Oh, okay. Your home security landscape section, I felt it needed more headers. It needed something to delineate what we were looking at, because as they're going through, as they're scrolling, something that has images, that doesn't need a header because it's pretty obvious what it's doing. It's comparing product. When you have a band, though, always put in a header so that they can go through, and when they're skimming, they can look and they say, oh, this has to do with home security. I'm going to check again, see what my competitor advantage is. Additionally, in here, you go through and you reference the different door cams and armed security and everything. Those are in here. You could have cut all of the redundancy because it's right next to it, and you could have just called it the marketing rings core products, and they're right next to it. Maybe you even went the extra step and you labeled this core product so it's obvious what it pairs up to. You would have saved yourself space, and you could have given yourself a little bit more white space. Right here, between the text and the graphic, it feels really crunched. I think, by the way, I didn't check this because I couldn't check this. I think your margin on the left is smaller than the margin on the right.
That honestly might be the case.
So you could have...
I have a problem with them in Canva.
Yeah, it's Canva. Everybody struggles with it. I know that I fought with my paper for like 20 hours minimum to get it to work. But if you had just fixed that margin, you could have moved this text over a little bit further into the graphic so it didn't feel like it was butting right up against it. I think it also would have solved your orphan issue, by the way. So margins being consistent on both sides are super helpful. Additionally, your bottom margin is really large. I would have scrunched that a bit. I typically suggest putting your page numbers in the top right corner because that's where you're likely to have headers and you're not going to hit it, which means that you could still use more of that at the very bottom space. You're not worrying about overlapping it, which is probably what you were doing here. You were trying to have a white border without hitting your yellow border that had your page number. So just solve it in the future by putting page numbers in the top right. Additionally, it means that if they're flipping through, it's easier because people are going to generally flip through using the top right. They're not going to flip through using the bottom left, or the bottom right. Your pestle, I thought this could be scrunched down a little bit. It takes up a lot of space. What you could have done if you were worried about it being overpowering is you could have used that light blue as the background instead of the dark blue, and that would have been fine. Also, you used donut bullets. I would just use straight up dot bullets because you have a circular motif used throughout your paper, and the dot just looks weird. I thought I had stuff on my screen originally, like dead pixels, because I opened it up on my phone. It was fun. I mean, I love the inclusion, by the way, of the competitive advantage section. I think I remember talking about this. Like, I really love seeing it. I love seeing the brands and the pestle. That works really well. This is a fantastic page. I'm just being nitpicky. It's all I can be at this point. Your campaign objectives, I think I would have wanted to see these be a little bit more concise down here. You have a tendency to bury the lead where you'll put stats in paragraphs and then it's either not helpful or it gets lost in translation. So even if it was helpful, it's no longer helpful. Like, your current holding of the market share should be in here. It shouldn't be in here. Or if you're talking about the narrowing perception gap, I like this explanation right here. By the way, there's a missed period here. These 3 objectives were selected to drive. Honestly, you could have left it as a caption and got everything else, in my opinion. Because everything else is just restating the objectives. And this is something I see a lot of students do, so it's fine. I don't know why I didn't catch it when I did a review session with you. But you could have gone with just this right here. You could have put it on like a nice little yellow background, made it a caption, stuck it underneath, and it would have been fine. And it would also have given you a little bit more room to play with your target market. Your target market is excellent, by the way. I have no notes.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, wait. Okay, wait. I do have, just one note. You do such a good job about not orphaning most of your bullets, and it could just be because you have a primary, secondary, and tertiary, and you can't really control it, but you did orphan some bullets. That whole idea of dragging, where the same concept on one bullet extends to the next line, doesn't really work with orphans. Like, for example, no children with children, that just extends nicely. But then, you get this whole urban, suburban dwellers, urban, suburban dwellers, urban, suburban, commercial areas. You could have just said commercial and left out areas because that would have made sense because it's still talking about geographics. So there are always places where you can cut words and you can find ways to adjust it. Like mixed residential commercial zoning, you could have called that mixed zoning. Focuses on asset protection and legal liability, that would just be asset/liability protection. And it would have gotten the same point across. So, yeah. Localization strategy. Oh, I remember, knowing you were going to do so well at ICDC when I read this paragraph. Because I was like, this is not something I see very often. It's awesome. I love it. I think I would have wanted to see a little bit more later. So this paragraph is great, but I want to use it as a cue for myself to bring it up. In your activities, or maybe you did a prop or something with it, I would have actually liked to see an ad or something that was different. Because talking about the travel safety in warmer regions with vacation rates, or the focus on family-centered. I would have loved to seen an ad interpreted in 3 different ways to reflect this localization strategy, because that's so unique. I don't see it very frequently. Well, I say that I haven't seen it in other papers, actually, so I haven't. It's to me, it's like unique. I would have wanted to see 3 ads interpreted like this, because I think that would have been incredibly powerful.
I had the idea of doing that, but it was after I printed my paper, so things happen.
Some stuff happens. Your consumer behavior insights. I like this. I'm not a fan of the giant yellow background on the page, not gonna lie. It makes it feel really squishy in here. And then it makes your pie chart feel like there's a lot of weird white space, but I think that was overcompensating for the yellow background. But that's fine. Your content is, once again, excellent. I would be a little careful, because once we start getting into the long paragraphs, this is when you have a habit of using run-on sentences. If you've got more than 3 commas in a sentence, you may want to look at it, unless it's an Oxford comma. If you've got more than 3 commas in a sentence, you might want to look at just splitting it up. You have a slight redundancy issue, not with redundancy of content, but redundancy of wording. If you've reused a word 3 or 4 times as a descriptor, it might be time to switch to something new. So the content here is good. There's just some areas where it feels a little bit repetitive and redundant. And I think you'll see, if you're looking for that and you're being mindful of that, your overall academic papers will improve as well. Not that I've read them, but just as like a general standpoint. This is good. I thought that was good. Okay, so this is where I'm getting super nitpicky. I think this could have been split into 2 paragraphs. We're not moving them. The same paragraph content would just get split off. I think you could have split it off right after it's festive, because that way you're talking about emotion below and logic right next to the map. And I feel like that would have been powerful.
I see. That clear separation.
Mm-hmm. Additionally, I would have actually flipped it a little bit so that, okay, native English speakers, or people who have been speaking English for a while, read in a Z pattern when they're reading English. We just zigzag all over the page. When you're starting without the context, because they would be moving this way right before they zigzag down, they're not gonna get this without the context. They're not gonna understand why it's important. I would have taken that little logistical paragraph, I would have moved it here, I would have moved the image to fit here, and additionally, you have text here. When you have a caption or text on an image next to a text block, it's going to feel overwhelming. That's why this side of your page feels much more weighted than this. So if you had moved it, you would have gone from looking at logistics here, talking about from the carolers to gift droppers, the anonymized clip-in from all across the country, and then as we moved our gaze over, we would have seen this. We would have seen the example all across the country with little pinpoints. And so we would have immediately been like, oh, this is all across the country. And then off to the side, we would have actually paused and sat and took a second to absorb what we're seeing here. It's a very nitpicky detail, but being aware of how the eye tracks across your paper and being really mindful of when we introduce this graphic information will improve your argument. Does that kind of make sense what I was trying to say?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Search-driven content funnel. This is good. I would have wanted to see a little bit more context given as to why it's so helpful. But I know you ran out of space, so that's fine. Social media, I would have wanted to see headers for each of these. TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn. That, I know you say them in the first sentence. I would have wanted to see a header. Once again, skimmability. Your ads are fantastic. I would have decreased the size right here. And you've got some of those run-on sentences. Like, all that is one sentence. Try to split it up. It'll make it easier for your judge to absorb. I do like the fact that you pointed out if TikTok is geo-banned. I might have even, because it was such a big thing at ICDC, I talked to a lot of people who were judging or who were mentoring or teaching for this. I would have made this a little caption. I would have put something on it to make it stand out more, so it was clear to the person grading your paper you had this plan. Because they might have noted it as they were reading through, but they may not have really internalized it. If your text is wrapping at 3 lines, it's going to look cramped. Generally, you should only continue to wrap a paragraph at like 4 lines, just so it's clearer. For something like this, you probably could have stretched it in, made it just a little bit more of a rectangle, like the size of a monitor, not a super long banner. But I know it is a YouTube banner, so it's kind of, I don't know, just making it fit a little bit better might have been good. LinkedIn, by the way, messaging is personalized based on business size or industry. This campaign pushes the idea it's the best time to invest. This paragraph to me read really basic. I understood what you were going for, it just didn't click. Your YouTube, your TikTok, they really well connected to their markets. But it was something about, I don't have any good feedback on how to improve it. I just wanted to say that I think I would have started with LinkedIn will be our B2B advisor to promote holiday security webinars. Messaging is, I would have moved that, and then these webinars would all have gone after it. So it would have introduced the point before it gets into the logistics, because I read this and my brain kind of wandered because it was, yeah. So just putting that, why we care, and then how we're going to do it first for LinkedIn. Ring Gift Fest, I love it. The 12 days of Ring Miss, I love this. This bugs me that this doesn't fully align, but that's just me. Okay, the Ring Holiday Fest is long. And this is where I started noticing, and I ended up back reading, and I noticed it elsewhere. You use 3s a lot. And by that, I mean you'll have 3 pieces to every sentence. Like, where is it? I had it here. By equipping retailers with holiday promotional tools, will enhance Ring's in-store presence, which accounts for nearly 50% of Ring's revenue. I don't know why this last sentence bugged me, and then I went through and I was reading it, and you've got a lot of 3s. Best Buy, Target, Home Depot. You're talking about, like, I don't know. I know there's literally only 2 sentences in this paragraph that had it, but I went through and I was rereading it a couple times, right? Because it's also just a good paper. I enjoy reading it. And you just have it a couple times. Like 3 offerings up here. You have sections here that go into 3. And I think what bugged me about it is it read as AI. Now, I know you didn't use AI on your paper because I saw the whole drafts. But in this day and age, we do have to be overly cautious about the perception of AI because it's getting harder to prove, I did this. It's all my work. I would keep an eye on what people acknowledge is AI coded and try to adapt your writing to not feature it. For example, I used to use M dashes because I like them. I think they're pretty. I don't use M dashes anymore because I don't want to get accused of using AI. Mm-hmm. This whole instances of 3, we're seeing a lot more in AI as it shows up. At that point, just split into new sentence. It'll be a shorter sentence, easier to consume, and you're going to avoid even the wandering idea of, oh, is this AI? Which sucks, because now we have to think about it. Ring Rewind and resolutions, by the way, I feel like these actually could have been combined somehow. ring resolutions just feels so basic. It didn't feel like there was enough description here to back it up, especially when this is supposed to be a user-generated content focused thing. But yeah. Okay, we have 3 minutes left. Questions, comments, concerns. I typically check in more, but I guess I got too busy yapping.
No, I'm all good on my side.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of surprised by the things you're noticing. Because, like, when you explain them, it something, like, just pops out and, like, just shines brightly.
Well, I mean, I'm studying media and communications. I hope I'm good at this.
Yeah.
I wanted to say this is so nitpicky. You forget decimals in certain parts of your budget. And I know it's not the intention, but it comes across as dishonest. And I'm going to explain that because I don't want you to think I'm calling you dishonest. For example, if we look here, this is $5,000. That's an expense. Underneath it, we have $20,000. Because you failed to account for the bullet points at first glance, it makes it look like we're not actually spending $20,000. It makes it look like we're spending $200. And this is why it's so important to include those decimals. You're never outright lying. You're never outright trying to be dishonest, but it comes across as misleading. And even if it's unintentional, that's still bad because it means it's careless. In an actual business environment, I personally would recommend having an Excel next to you and you're just copying over all of the exact numbers so you don't hit this problem again. Especially when you look here, the total has those extra decimal places. So it makes you do a double take. It makes you look back and you're like, whoa, wait, there's more zeros there. Where did those come from? It's super small. Your judge obviously didn't care enough to dock you points from this. I probably would have asked you questions if I was judging this paper with no background context. It's also on me. I didn't catch it until I was reading through again, but I think I might not have actually seen your final draft. I don't remember. It's been a while. Yeah. The agency fee, I love it. I applaud you. Thank you for including it. I love seeing these. I do want to say, though, your expenses are over $1 million. I would argue a 5% contingency fee is not high enough. Given the current state of things, especially considering TikTok, if you had to transition your team, they may have already been working on creative, which might mean that you had sunk cost that would have had to be taken into consideration. So I would have gone with a 7% contingency fee. It does mean your ROI would be lower. However, you were talking to, I don't know if she said the manager or marketing, whatever, but she said the ROI was high. I agree.
Yes.
I would have had that contingency fee to 7%. And honestly, with a company like Ring, especially a holiday, I would have raised the agency fee from 12 to maybe 14 or 16% as well. That would have decreased ROI, but it would have been more realistic, especially since you are an external agency. And, this is the kicker, you said it would cover our full range of agency services such as account, media, production, strategic, digital, and creative departments. That's a lot. That's a lot of work. A 12% agency fee is not going to cut it. You're going to need something higher on that. You know what? I know I said we'd end at 1:30. I have free time, like an extra 15 minutes. Would you like an extra 15 minutes? I do have to head out for a meeting after that, but...
Sure, yeah.
Cool. Your cogs bugged me, and I would want these broken down more. What's in a bundle? Because up here, you said there were 3 bundles. The starter kit, the family safety kit, and the business bundle. Which is this the cogs for? Because all of those are going to have different price offerings. Because if they're all the same price offering, then it's not... It's unrealistic. Where did it go? Like, the business bundle, why would that cost the same as the starter set? Or the family safety set? Yeah. That seems like that would always have to cost differently. So, when you say cogs per bundle and then you give me one single thing, it doesn't make sense. Or you're talking about the average price per bundle. You could have solved all of this by saying averaged across bundle 1, 2, and 3. That would have been fine. And I could have seen the average, which would actually be great because that would be thinking about variance forecasting in your revenue. But because you didn't have that, you only had the average here, it didn't make sense and it was a red flag. I think you could have solved it by taking this, squishing it over a little bit, and then labeling this with a caption, not just a header. I would label it with a caption based on average bundle prices. You did a good job, by the way, throughout the course of your paper of including captions. Next time, once again, don't bold them. It makes it hard to read with that specific font, or just choose a different font.
Can I go on the bundles? One thing you said about variance forecasting, what pops in my head there that I could have done instead was like maybe anticipate that, you know, some bundles would sell more than others, like add or allocate like 50% towards, like in the average, allocate 50% towards the consumer bundle or like 20% towards the business bundle and use that average. I think that would actually read a little bit more realistic too.
I think that would have been perfect.
Yeah.
I was going with average because I didn't want to introduce too much new content because that can get overwhelming, especially when we are doing a post-mortem, because I don't have a Canva doc open. I can't like show you what I mean, but especially with variance forecasting, looking at, you know, we're expecting this for each bundle. It's typically like a T-chart, right? Or not T-chart. It's typically like a table chart where you have everything in, you use columns, not rows. So for example, the furthest left column would be minus 50% revenue or minus 37% revenue or whatever you're expecting the lowest possible worst case variance to be, aside from, you know, your campaign makes no money because that's unrealistic. And then you reflect that on the furthest right side, which would be, you know, plus 78% revenue, which is what we're expecting for like the ultimate max. If you did do that, that would be very impressive. I know for me that I look positively when I do see that. I see it more in 20 pagers, not 10 pagers. But it makes for a really good prop, especially if you're adding it to an advert portfolio. Yeah. Your initial expense coverage honestly feels kind of like it's... I personally, for this project, because you're talking about it being so large, it's almost $2 million in expenses, I would have put your initial expense coverage immediately below this yellow line, or this yellow brick, talking about the gross profit, expenses, net profit, ROI. That gives us a snapshot. Then if you go into initial expense coverage, you'd have to move this out, which I think would be fine. And it would give you a little bit more space to expound upon it. Because I'd like to see, in addition here, an idea of when you hit that break even. I know that you see in the launch and post-launch phases, the generated revenue from increased sales will cover ongoing, but just an estimation. This is a 45-day long campaign. When are you hoping to turn a profit? When are we making that almost $8 million in gross profit? When are we hitting the point where we're getting into the $6 million almost of net profit? So initial expense coverage, I would have put immediately after that snapshot and then move the profitability analysis down here. And then that would have also given you a little extra space to go into the agency fee and make it not so tight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Your budget, though, is a thing of beauty. I love the way that you have everything organized. It's great. Just, you know, be really careful with the decimals in the actual charts. Okay. Key metrics. I remember going over these. The paragraphs I have no complaints about. There's some orphans, but I'll let it go. I don't like your graph. I feel like I understand what you're trying to do here. I don't like it. I feel like it doesn't contribute enough. And if you had just stretched your key metrics out to fit, you could have moved your profitability analysis down here. It would have fit. You could have had more space for something else. Additionally, if you were doing key metrics and you just jump right into it, it can feel jarring. I like the fact that you bring back the objective it's tied to. That's always bonus points for me. You had continuous improvement. I would have rather seen continuous improvement be where this is and just move everything else down by 1. I think the dashboard is amazing, especially for a really large company like Ring. They're not going to want to immediately go into the KPI. They want to know what's the plan to achieve the KPI. So I would have put continuous improvement first. It's a little bit wordy. I would have cut out some filler, or I would have added some bullet points to go along with this to specifically talk about what you were going to be implementing. I might have put in a timeline. These are the days that we hope to hit certain key metric marks, and these are the things we're doing to achieve it. I think that would have been great. I do see why you put it on your final page, but I think moving that second and third, or just even the third objective down here, or the key metrics, would have been fine, especially since you'd be scrapping that chart. But yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously I got super nitpicky because I had to get super nitpicky. This is a fantastic paper. Thank you so much for letting me record this. I am recording, right? Okay, yeah, I'm recording. Wow, that would have been great.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to share? I just want to say that I am really proud of you, man. Your first project was awesome. I didn't know you could get better than that, but it did. It's awesome. I mean, while I've got you here, Mr. First Place, do you have any tips?
Oh, wait, can you say that again?
I said, Mr. First Place, while I have you here, do you have any tips you want to share with anybody who might be watching?
I want to share. Let me think. I definitely think my biggest tip overall, you might have seen this while working with me, or I've noticed this. Find something you're passionate about. Find something that almost doesn't feel like work in a way, something you can really learn from, and something that you're kind of a little bit obsessed with, and you're able to just like work on it whenever you want to. You think of.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know for me, my project never felt like work, and
Yes.
it was awesome. All right, well.
But I think that why it is the way it is, because I always was able to just like log on and just work. I didn't have to like prep myself. I didn't procrastinate at all. It was just a really, really like easy project for me to kind of just get into and start doing.
I think that work also really paid off, that motivation and love. I mean, I know for me, I'm just thankful I had ADHD hyperfixation on the thing, because there's no way I could have done that project myself if I hadn't had that. But that is really cool. I thank you again for letting me record. I do have to go get ready for that other meeting, but yeah, I'm gonna send you this recording. I want you to go through. That way you can have it for future benefit. And then also, please let me know if you are okay with it being posted. This will not be posted without your consent. And
all right, yes.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for the time.
Of course. Bye-bye.